Hello, welcome back. I am Shorter Than the Easel. Feels so good to be doing this intro again. I'm glad to be reviving the channel, but I wanted to revisit something I haven't spoken about since it happened. Don't worry, it's not drama. I'm talking about my very first and only gig as an artist, Raw Natural Born Artist. Now, I made a sort of fun little vlog in a sense. It was more just a compilation of clips because I'm not a natural vlogger. And especially since I don't like filming things in front of family, I feel weird doing that. I was just taking like little clips here and there during the show. But back in 2018, I was invited to a Raw Natural Born Artist gig, which I ended up doing. But lately, I've been watching a lot of convention videos and a lot of different like Artist Alley table prep videos, and it's been reminding me of my table that I had at Raw Natural Born Artist. I'm just gonna call it Raw from here on, just to make it easier. But I figured I never really made a video talking about it afterwards, so I feel like now that some time has passed, it might be good to revisit it. Now, I have tried talking about this once, but for some reason, the built in lighting my computer has made everything super laggy. So, we're doing this again, which means hopefully my thoughts will be more well organized since I've already talked about it once. But, to recap, I was invited to this show. I don't remember what the theme of the show was, but it was a gig in New York. It was, I guess, based at the venue was this club. So it had like the main floor, balcony area, the stage, bars. It's a club. But it was overbooked. Now, well, not necessarily before, I didn't know it was overbooked until closer to the event. So when I was invited, it wasn't completely overbooked. I think they briefly mentioned it might be, but they didn't see it as a problem. But the venue itself wasn't really that big. Like, it was like a small club. It wasn't like huge. It wasn't like warehouse club. Say, this is the second floor area. Like this is the balcony. This is the entrance to the stairwell. And the way these tables were set up was it's two folding tables separated by grids. Like the grid panels, like hang on. Like I didn't get this for that event. I just got this for my room because you can make shelves out of them. They had a wall of like these grid panels. Yeah, typical things for a table setup. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, everyone has their own table and their own wall and their space behind it. No, it was literally two tables. Like, again, going back to this. Hang on, that. Two tables separated by the grid with folding chairs next to them. Yeah, that was the setup. So, two separate tables would be sharing one wall of grid panels. Now, when I was invited, the What is Raw page, I don't remember existing. I've gone back to the website for Raw recently, and they had a page explaining it, which I wish they had then, but I genuinely don't remember it being there, and I've tried looking at the Wayback Machine. They have nothing for that page at all in 2018. Like, it doesn't look like that popped up until, like, either late 2019 or sometime in, like, the 2020s, or, like, early 2020s. But the way it was pitched to me, and I do remember speaking with some other artists that managed to walk around, especially some younger artists than me, because there were some teens there, because this was pitched to a lot of smaller and newer creators and artists. But the way it was pitched to me, it was more like an art show. It was like a true showcase where you're just displaying your work and being like, oh, this is what I do. Look at it. Like, even in the video, you can see like all the different tables set up with everyone displaying their stuff. But throughout the event, over the loudspeakers, you would hear them making announcements being like, "Don't forget to check out the artists we have and all the vendors selling their wares." And it's just like, "Oh." Like, the moment I started hearing that more, I, like, panicked because I wasn't told this was more like an artist alley situation. I was told this was more of just an art show where I am showcasing things. Like, I didn't at no point was I really pitched, "Oh, yeah, no, this is an artist alley. This is more of, like, a maker fair or something." And I mean, granted, in the months leading up, there were the occasional, like, Zoom call kinda setups, but they had, like, VODs you could watch, but I never had time to either join the calls because I had work at the time, and those calls always ended up lining up with my work schedule. And the VODs, I didn't really have time to watch because half the time when I got back, I was pretty much just conked out because I worked retail and I did shipment. So maybe they covered it in one of those calls, but there were definitely a few other artists who were just like me, where they were like, I didn't know that was what I was supposed to be doing. And it's not like a traditional, like, art show where it's like, "Oh, it's a gallery." It's like this was set up in a club. And I mean, I can throw pictures up somewhere of my table, and I mean, I do have the video that I put together where it's just if I sold anything from that display, it would just be down to the grid wall and the back of the setup on the other side of it. Like, I would have nothing. So it's not even like I could just sell what was on display because I couldn't, not because I would literally have nothing to display. And especially as a digital artist, because I was invited for my digital art. So for a digital artist to be invited to something like this where I definitely felt out of place looking at all of the tables around me and seeing like the other side of my display, there was someone with a ton of macrame stuff that was amazing. There were like full canvas paintings, woodwork. There was so much. And I was like one of I don't know if there were any other digital artists there, but I was definitely one of the few if there were. Like, I felt very much like a fish out of water there. Because again, this was like my first event like this. I didn't know what to expect. Because again, I was advertised that this was an art show, a showcase, as they call it. It's a raw natural born artist showcase. You're showcasing your work. At no point did I feel like I was supposed to be selling my work. I was sort of occasionally mingling with artists, but I really couldn't mingle or go anywhere because this comes back to what I said about it being overbooked. Because again, I was in the balcony. Now you would think I would be able to spend more time at my little chair here. No. No, I wasn't. I wasn't. I want to know where I spent most of my time. Right here, on the other side of a very thick wall and pillar, while there is a crowd of people all around me I could barely move through, just watching my table from the distance, wanting to interact with everyone looking at it. And I couldn't because it felt awkward to just be screaming from the other side of the pillar, being like, "Hi, I'm the artist." Just like I was literally separated from it. It was that crowded. I genuinely couldn't navigate through the crowd to get back to my table. And at one point, the dancers for one of the performers, who I don't remember who they were, but they definitely had one of those energies that it's like it gave off the sort of an I'm bigger than everyone else kind of vibe. Like everyone else was it's like I mean literally everyone else there was so nice and supportive and I I did get to speak to some people that were also there that were, again, same boat where it's just like we were invited, but we really weren't told what it was. But this one performer and their dancers, it's like, and their family, because they pretty much had their whole family there, literally almost kept me from my table. Like they were mostly who kept me from my table. And at one point, I am so glad my sister was there because she is a savior for my table in that event. Because at one point, I had gone to the bathroom because the bathroom was literally like over hang yeah, over here, like on this side. So I come out of the bathroom. I'm just standing here watching the dancers leaning on my table, one of them sitting in the chair, and I just have a look of panic on my face like, "Oh no." Because I'm just like mentally thinking, "Oh no, everything is going to topple. They're going to knock everything over." And they almost did this. Like, the table was shaking. Like it was like I was internal panic. Like, it was bad enough that I couldn't just get over there because, again, crowd. So, me being blocked, stuck over here, just watching this all go down, and luckily my sister was right there, and she spoke up, she said something, and they moved. They walked away, and as much as I wanted to go around the venue after that, I didn't want to, like, well, as much as I wanted to go around the venue after that, I didn't want to, because I was afraid that would happen again. So, I was just like, "I'm staying with my table. I don't wanna be separated from my table." And it was just once I was there, I was basically stuck. Because again, crowd. But looking back on it, I wouldn't do that again. I wouldn't do an event like that again. Like, if Ron, Natural Born Artist, reached out to me now, I'd say no. Because A, I wouldn't be able to do a close event in New York again because the way they had it set up, I don't know if it's still the same. But if you've done an event with them once, the next event has to be in a completely different state. Now, for me, I was originally invited to a Connecticut event, but for me, especially as a smaller artist who has never done anything like that before, at least at the time had never done that before, for me, that would be a couple days trip. So it wasn't even close, which is why I asked if there was anything closer, and they said New York. And I'm guessing this happened a lot for them to be as overbooked as they were for that event. But that's how I ended up at the New York event. So aside from me have if I did that now, I would have to do a completely different state. So I would have to think about travel expenses. On top of that, especially if I were doing this again as a first time artist being invited to this, instead of how artist alleys typically do it, where you apply for a table that you end up having to pay for, Raw has you sell tickets. Now again, this is typically focused on smaller creators, smaller artists. They typically reach out to people that are new to the community. So you would think, okay, selling tickets not that bad until you realize it's you have to sell 20 tickets. Each ticket is $25. Now you're probably thinking that's not too bad, but again, they are primarily reaching out to smaller creators, people who don't have as much of an audience. And this isn't something that's really heavily advertised. Like, I had no clue what it was prior to them reaching out because I'd never heard about it. I hadn't heard any other artists talking about it or anything else. So it's not something that most people know, but the people they reach out to don't typically have that big of an audience to sell tickets to. So more often than not, like in my case, it was a lot of friends and family that were I'm lucky to have had supporting me. But if you didn't sell the 20 tickets, you had to pay for it. Like you had to pay for those remaining tickets. and 20 tickets at 25 bucks a pop. If you are a small creator who more than likely can't afford to pay for all of that, especially if you were coming from out of state, which I technically was, but luckily it's close enough that it's a day trip. The price of God knows how many tickets you're paying for, on top of any travel expenses, including gas, tolls, whether you're staying at a hotel or an Airbnb, food, it adds up. And again, they typically reach out to smaller creators and artists, which is why I think a lot of people, because I have seen some reviews calling it a scam, this is probably why. So not only were they overbooked, probably because a lot of people had a similar issue to me, where it's just like, it's not, the original offer wasn't nearby, which makes no sense because they try to reach out to local artists, which makes absolutely no sense if you're going to be inviting them to an event that's states away. So yeah, local artists that don't live here at all or anywhere near here. So on top of that, then you have the tickets, which again I was lucky to have the support that I did. But again, this was something that was pitched to me as an art show. So yes, I did do a mock setup in my room. I measured it out on the floor and everything because I didn't have that grid. Because, what am I saying? I don't think I showed it in this one. Actually, did I show it in this one? Either way. I didn't have these at the time to practice on, so I was just measuring things out and laying it on the floor. So I had been pitched a completely different thing, and while the website does have a What is Raw page now, because I did recently look back at it, out of curiosity, because I don't remember that page being there, I went to the Wayback Machine, and yeah, no, there's nothing for that page in 2018 at all, at no point in the year. So they had to have added it a couple years after. But had they had that page, because on the page it does mention that it is more like, at least the way to describe it does make it sound more like an artist alley, not an art show. Had they had that when I did the show, I would have approached my table and prep so much differently. I would have gotten prints of each thing that I had on display. I would have had stuff I can sell. I would have planned things out more like an artist alley. I didn't, because that's not what was pitched to me. So on top of that, I mean, the event was fun. I don't regret doing this at all. It was it was a learning experience. It did teach me a lot. It's also the experience that made me think art wasn't, or at least tabling wasn't for me, and art shows weren't for me. Even though looking back at it now, most art shows probably aren't like Raw at all. Because even just like looking at artist alleys and vendor halls and even just art shows, or like, not art shows, even just like markets and stuff like that, even those are done differently than Raw. While I don't regret it, at the same time, I know that event is what made me think, oh, everything is plateauing after this. Because everything did plateau after this event. It made me think like nothing could top it, but also maybe this isn't really for me, and I was questioning myself not just as an artist, but questioning my choice as art being a career. Because after that was when I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to start focusing on it as more of a hobby and start focusing on other things as potential career paths. Meanwhile, hi, I'm back. Once an artist, always an artist. But yeah, no, it definitely, it taught me a lot. It did. It taught me up about table setup. It taught me not to go for events where you have to sell the tickets because while it technically isn't a scam, when it targets smaller creators who don't have the audience to sell those tickets to, it does seem a little questionable as to why they mostly target smaller creators. Actually, in a weird way, now that I've said that, that does remind me of the. Now that I've said it like that, it reminds me of the A Million Lives book event and how that was mostly directed to smaller indie authors, even though they did have featured authors, where I feel like the featured authors were there to give the smaller authors some confidence in going to this event, but that's something for a whole different video and possibly on my other channel, Chrissy TNT. I don't know, because I post most of my author stuff over there. But now that I'm saying it like this and describing it like that, yeah, no, it does have a very similar vibe. But instead of being overbooked, yeah, no, it kind of was overbooked, but not in the not in the same way. Let's say that. Let's say venue wise, different issue. Where they had too big a venue, we had too small a venue. They This was a different type of overpromising. It's like, don't get me wrong, the team that worked on it, they were amazing. But I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't. Granted, I do want to do an artist alley at some point. I just don't know if it'd be under this handle, the Gracita T handle. I'd have to like figure out what I would bring and things like that. And I mean, now I have retail background, so because at that point that was like my second, no, wait, third year at yeah, I was gonna say the store I worked at. Though to be fair, the location I worked at doesn't exist anymore. It is closed. It is said to be demolished. I did work retail in a clothing store for almost 6 years had the pandemic not happened. But now I do have some retail background. That was probably actually, you know what? That would be my second year into that job, if I remember correctly, because technically I started that job tail end of 2016. So that Raw would have been happening tail end my second year at that store. I would love to work a table at a convention. I don't know if I could do it on my own, but I'd probably start with like a smaller event just to test the waters, see if it really is something I want to do. Because that's the thing, I enjoyed the prep. I enjoyed the mock table setup and everything. I enjoyed the all of that. Granted, I've never really been a people person, but at the same time, like while Raw didn't feel like the event for me, and it didn't feel like my night. Like it didn't feel like this is my moment. This is my chance to shine and really show people that this is what I've been working towards. Because it should have felt like that. It should have. Because I was invited to this thing. It's not like I reached out to them. They reached out to me. Which as a small creator, that feels like a big deal. That when am I saying it feels like it is a big deal. When you were reached out to some to when you were reached out to by something like this, you get excited, understandably, because it does kind of make you feel like this is my chance to shine. This is someone seeing worth in what I do. And I was one of maybe the only digital artist at this event. So it felt like someone saw worth in what I did, but at the event I felt like a fish out of water. I felt so just not out of my league, but not even out of my comfort zone, just out of place. Like, it didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. Which, I mean, technically I wasn't. I was originally invited to the Connecticut show. Which, who knows? Maybe had I gone to that one, I would have fit in. I don't know. But because I felt so out of place, I think that's where the feeling of maybe this isn't for me came from, and where that want to just take a break from art and be like, maybe art isn't the career path for me came from. Yeah, no, if I was asked to do it again, no. Just no. It's like there were a lot of amazing creators and performers and artists. It's like there was a special effects booth which was amazing. They did some amazing like creature work and body paint, and there were so many good creators and booths there that I wish I could have seen, but I was literally trapped at my table, and at one point I didn't want to leave my table after it almost essentially got destroyed. But while I don't regret doing the event, I wouldn't do that again. Maybe I would have better luck at a convention. I don't know. Because I mean, at least the conventions, I enjoy cosplay. I enjoy that scene. It's like that is my scene. I enjoy all of that. And give me a reason to make fan art, depending on which con it is, because I know different conventions have different rules about selling fan art, but like it would feel more I'd feel more at home, probably. Yeah, no. Looking back at it, I probably shouldn't have done it. I'm still kind of glad I did, but I wouldn't do it again. Yeah. So if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video, whenever and whatever it is.